The warship Crimson Fang hummed with barely contained chaos. General Draven, supreme commander of the Crithian assault fleet, stood in the detention wing with his forearms crossed, his obsidian scales bristling with barely controlled fury. His twin cubs, Kale and Vix, had vanished from the nursery pod during the night cycle, and every soldier aboard was scrambling to locate them. Search every compartment. Draven's voice rumbled through the corridors, a sound that made veteran warriors flinch. My offspring cannot simply disappear on a vessel in deep space. The Crithians were apex predators, their empire built on conquest and ruthless efficiency. They had glass-like fangs, reptilian features, and stood 9 feet tall. Their young, however, were vulnerable, precious beyond measure in a species where breeding was rare. The loss of his cubs filled Draven with a primal terror he'd never experienced even in the bloodiest battles. Lieutenant Zaros approached cautiously. "General, we've searched the armory, engineering, even the waste recyclers. There's only one section left unchecked." "Where?" Draven demanded. "The prisoner cells, sir. Specifically, the human cell." Draven's eyes narrowed to slits. The human. 3 weeks ago, they'd intercepted a human exploration vessel near the Helix Nebula. Most of the crew had been eliminated in the firefight. But one had survived, a young female, named Lyra. The Crithian High Command wanted a living human specimen to study before they launched their invasion of Earth. Draven had kept her alive, for that purpose alone. Humans were considered weak, soft-bodied creatures. Their pathetic lifespans, fragile bones, and lack of natural weapons made them laughable. They had no claws, no venom, no armor plating, just pink skin and desperation. "That's impossible," Draven growled. "The cell is magnetically sealed. How would my cubs even reach?" He stopped mid-sentence and strode toward the detention block, his clawed feet thundering against the metal floor. Zaros and 6 guards followed, weapons raised. When they reached Lyra's cell, Draven activated the viewing panel. What he saw made his breath catch in his throat. There, on the sparse sleeping platform, lay the human girl. Her brown hair was tangled and her prison uniform was rumpled. But that wasn't what froze every Crithian in place. Curled on Lyra's chest, sleeping peacefully, were Kale and Vix. The cubs, each the size of a house cat but with all the deadly features of their species, were nestled against the human's heartbeat. Their small-scaled bodies rose and fell with her breathing. One of Lyra's hands rested protectively on Kale's back, the other loosely holding Vix's tiny tail. Lyra herself was awake, but barely. Her eyes opened slowly as she sensed the presence at the door. When she saw Draven's massive silhouette, she tensed but didn't move, careful not to disturb the sleeping cubs. They crawled through the ventilation shaft," Lyra whispered, her voice hoarse, "about 4 hours ago. They were crying. I think they were cold and scared." Draven's translator implant processed her words, but his mind struggled to comprehend them. His cubs, the offspring of the most feared general in the Crithian Empire, had sought comfort from a human prisoner. "They shouldn't," he started, then stopped. Crithian cubs imprinted on warmth and heartbeat rhythms. But humans ran hotter than Crithians, their hearts beating faster, more frantically. To a frightened cub in a cold ship, that steady, rapid thump-thump-thump would be irresistible. "Step away from them," Draven commanded, his hand on his plasma sidearm. Lyra's eyes flashed with something he hadn't seen before. Defiance. "If I move suddenly, I'll wake them. They were terrified when they got here." "Do you want them scared again?" A human prisoner was arguing with him. The absurdity of it would have been laughable, except she was right. Waking cubs abruptly from deep sleep could trigger their predator instincts prematurely, causing them distress. Draven deactivated the magnetic seal and entered the cell, moving with careful precision despite his size. He knelt beside the sleeping platform, an enormous reptilian warrior kneeling before a human girl half his size. "How did you calm them?" he asked quietly. Lyra smiled just a little. "I sang to them. My mother used to sing to me when I was afraid. I figured, maybe your species isn't so different when you're young and lost." She had sung to his cubs. A human had comforted the future generals of the Crithian Empire with primitive vocalizations. Slowly, carefully, Draven reached out and scooped up Kale. The cub stirred, chirped softly, then settled against his father's armored chest. Lyra gently lifted Vix and handed the cub to Draven, who cradled both offspring in his lower arms. For a moment their eyes met, human and Crithian, prisoner and captor. "You could have hurt them," Draven said. They are defenseless at this age. You could have used them as hostages. Lyra's expression turned sad. They're children. I don't hurt children, no matter whose children they are. Something shifted in Draven's perception. The intelligence reports had been wrong. Humans weren't weak because they lacked natural weapons. They were strong in ways the Crithian Empire had never bothered to measure. You protected them, he said slowly. Of course I did. Draven stood, his cubs sleeping against him. At the cell door he paused and turned back. The invasion of Earth, he said. In your opinion, how would humans respond to an attack on their offspring? Lyra's eyes hardened. We would burn the stars themselves to ash. We would follow you to the edge of the universe. We would never ever stop. Draven believed her. He left the cell and walked back toward the command deck, his cubs safe in his arms. Behind him, Lieutenant Zeros asked, Sir, what about the human? General Draven was quiet for a long moment. Then, double her rations. Give her access to the environmental controls in her cell. And Zeros? Yes, sir. Send a priority message to High Command. Tell them the Earth invasion is postponed indefinitely. Sir? Draven looked down at his sleeping cubs, remembering the human girl's gentle hands and fierce eyes. Tell them we need to reconsider our intelligence on the human species. We may have drastically underestimated them. In her cell, Lyra sat alone once more, her chest still warm where the cubs had slept. She smiled into the darkness, knowing that somehow, 2 frightened children had just changed the fate of 2 civilizations. And outside among the cold stars, an empire began to learn what humanity had always known. The strongest force in the universe isn't found in weapons or armor. It's found in the simple act of protecting someone smaller than yourself.